We have a new update with the results of Anthony Davis's MRI, and I have to say it's a little bit unexpected and more concerning than initially thought. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Initially, Davis's injury was labeled an ankle sprain, but now, of course, the MRI has revealed a midfoot sprain. So let's talk through the differences, how that might have happened, and what this could mean for his recovery. So I have to admit, I was surprised to hear this. His mechanism looked very classic for just a traditional inversion lateral ankle sprain here. Basically, as he went down, that right ankle rolls pretty significantly. But, this is why we check areas above and below the joint. This is why we do our physical exam, because sometimes we find pain in other areas as sort of sequelae or kind of secondary effects of the injury mechanism, and we find other injuries, like was the case here. Looking back at this play with the benefit of hindsight, I think it's really this moment kind of right there as the ball of Davis's foot, called the forefoot, basically first strikes the court with his foot in this extreme plantar flexed or pointed downward position, just in the moments right before he goes into that severe inversion. There's no doubt that in this position, those lateral ankle ligaments are being stretched, but right at that first moment, right at his first toe impact on the court, was when I suspect the trauma kind of came through to the midfoot. With our biodigital anatomy tool here, I've highlighted the specific bones of the midfoot. So a midfoot sprain is an injury to a ligament in the bones of the midfoot. So the foot can be divided into three regions: the hind foot, which is going to be the talus and the calcaneus, all the way in the back towards the heel; the midfoot, which are going to be these bones that I have colored here; and then the forefoot, which are going to be sort of the metatarsals and the toe bones. So all of these little ligaments here are connections that provide stability between those bones of the midfoot and the posterior kind of hind foot and the more distal forefoot. Now, classically in this area, of course, the big midfoot sprain we all hear about in sports is a Liz Frank injury. That's going to be specifically this ligament that runs from a bone called the medial cuneiform out to the second metatarsal. And it's really crucial in help maintaining kind of the arch support and integrity of the foot. But any of these little ligaments that sit here running between these bones are considered midfoot ligaments and could be the ligament that exactly is sprained here with Davis's case. Typically, these midfoot ligaments, particularly this Liz Frank ligament complex, are going to be predisposed to injury when the foot is sort of twisted in some way or there's some kind of axial load where the foot is being compressed. The classic indirect mechanism of a Liz Frank sprain is when somebody lands with the foot plantar flexed in this position, and then you have an axial load coming down from behind in the heel. So what that does is, you can see it kind of shears and puts additional stress through that midfoot connection between those midfoot bones and kind of the forefoot. So then if we look back at the play with Davis, you can see there is that very brief kind of initial hyperplantar flexed right there kind of load that he puts through that midfoot as he's getting into that position for that inversion mechanism to occur. So I suspect it was some point either kind of right there at that initial contact where his foot is plantar flexed in that kind of classic position, or you also have to remember we don't know what the foot is exactly doing inside the shoe here. There could certainly be some torsional forces on the foot as he kind of completes that injury mechanism. And remember, there's often that torsional kind of twisting component to these types of midfoot sprains. And so here as Davis is coming down and landing, his body is twisting. He's got that kind of twisting momentum, that torsion that goes through his body down into the foot, again, as he kind of initially lands in that very extreme kind of plantar flexed position, right as he makes contact kind of from that spot, right there, those toes kind of coming up, all that load through the ball of his forefoot being distributed to the midfoot. I suspect, combined with the torsion, is probably when that midfoot sprain occurred, with maybe some additional kind of trauma here just from the way his foot was kind of twisting or impacting the court inside his shoe. Now, unfortunately, this 4-week reevaluation period does not mean that he's going to be back in 4 weeks. All it means is that the team medical staff is going to reevaluate with things like their exam, possibly some imaging like an MRI or a CT scan at that 1-month mark to assess his recovery. That then means there's typically going to be a week or two at least of kind of a ramp up period, assuming everything is going in the right direction. So realistically, when we hear reevaluation in 4 weeks, best case scenario, that often means back on the court playing full time in more maybe like 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how he progresses. Even if he does come back in 1 month, that puts only a couple of weeks left in the Lakers regular season. And so if he misses another couple of weeks with that ramp up period, he really could be coming back at the very tail end of the Lakers' regular season games. So overall, this was a great lesson and example of an injury is not always as straightforward and simple as it looks with a mechanism. There can be secondary effects, there can be other trauma to the sort of nearby joints and areas of the body that can be injured as sort of side effects or sequelae of that initial injury, or just because of the way that the specific biomechanics forces are distributed through the whole body. I'm sure there's at least still some damage to those lateral ankle ligaments, but in the Lakers' mind, this midfoot sprain takes precedence as being the most concerning sort of time-limiting factor of his overall recovery. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.